just even before anything, just explain, how does the business of church work? So as someone who is leading a church, someone who works in the church, how do you make your money? For example, like a regular business, if I'm selling shoes, I sell shoes, I live off of my profit.
Okay.
I live and die by my profit.
Yeah.
So what's the church business?
I wouldn't call it as a church business. I'll call it a kingdom function. You see, the first thing Jesus introduced was a kingdom. The name kingdom has two things. A king's domain is the territory where the king rules. When Jesus was taken before Pilate, he said, my kingdom is not of this earth. Because I was trying to tell Pilate, I'm not here to engineer a political system that is almost like your system, but I'm also here to introduce certain principles, certain ideologies, certain laws that if exercised, they will provoke the advancement of this spiritual kingdom. So when we look at it now from a kingdom dynamics, is that every kingdom has certain rules, regulations, or what we call a constitution, which governs and manages their business and their affairs. So before we even look on the money side, we first of all need to understand that majority of the people that go to ministry, actually, they don't go for the money. It is people seeing CITAM after 50 years of existence, but nobody tells you the price they paid before they began. Nobody tells you what it costed them to buy the properties, what it costed them to build that vision 50 years later, and to reach to a place where people are convinced, compelled to freely give, because no one is coerced, to certain levels, and they become so accountable to say that the people gave this amount of money, and this is the audit, and this is how the money has been used. Meaning that there is a cause as to why they gave, there is a conviction as to why they gave, and so there is an audit and all paraded there. So having said that, we realize that now that we've introduced it, in the Old Testament, people used to give tithes and offerings. And part of the tithes was that because the Levites did not have an inheritance in the promised land. So the 11 tribes were given an inheritance, and the Lord, this is the concept, that they were taken out of captivity, which was Egypt. They went into a land which was not theirs, it was the Lord's. So when they landed in that land, the Lord gave them the land, the Lord gave them the rains, the Lord gave them the seed, the Lord gave them the harvest. So whatever they were handling is actually what the Lord had given them. And that's the principle of the kingdom of Christianity, that whatever I have is not by my hard work, is what the Lord has enabled me to get. That's the first ideology. Then the Lord said, because the Levites don't have anything to eat, they are not farming, they are serving in my temple. Take 10% of your harvest, so that out of that they will have food, first of all for them and their families. Then in the barns, as the food is taken there, we'll have food for refugees, and we'll also have food for the widows and the orphans. So the treasury, or what we call the storehouse of the Old Testament temple, not only took care of the Levites, it also took care of the needy. Those were the orphans and also the refugees. And that's why there was the tithe the Levite received, and then there was the tithe of tithe given to the high priest. Now let's do scalability. You have a community of 2 million people. These are agricultural economy, and they are tithing what they have harvested. And you have a community possibly of 50,000 priests. So if these are the people handling the harvest, ideally, they will not be in the same level as those that brought the harvest. Because in the law of scalability, it means there is a lot given, but there is a prescription on how this thing ought to be used. When we come to the New Testament, Jesus is requested to pay what they call the temple tax. It's in the book of Matthew. And every Jew was meant to pay it. It was half a shekel. It was called the temple tax because it was the money that facilitated the operation and the running of the temple. So we still see where there was a temple, resources were needed for operation. And Jesus sends Peter and tells Peter, this thing we have to pay. He tells him, go and fish. Peter comes with a fish, and in the fish there is coin. So prophetically symbolizing that the sustenance of the New Testament church will be sustained by the fish, because I will make you fishers of men. Yes. So the men that come to the congregation are the people who are going to sustain the vision, and also the concept there. And now that became the pattern, because in the New Testament, they still gathered in homes, gathered in houses, and then they gave their offering, and the offering was used for the sustenance of the priest and the people that were there. But when you go to the Old Testament in the book of Samuel, the sons of Samuel mishandled the offering of the Lord. So this is the order. When people give, they give to God, but it is men who receive.
Yes.
So the men who receive, how they handle the offering, their judgment is always given by God. The Lord actually killed them, pronounced a curse that out of the sons of Eli, none shall go beyond 30 years, which was the legal age to become a priest. So when we look at the concept of what we might call the commercialization and the industrialization of the church, what I can tell you the truth, you will not run away from the judgment of Yahweh. And I'll tell you for free, study many people that have commercialized the ministry. Check their lives and check the lives of their children. Something will always be off, because you cannot manipulate people to give to God for your self-gain and think you'll run away from the judgment of God. It is still even in the New Testament. So we will not run away from the reality. There are people who've seen ministry as a business venture because there is collection, but also will not run away from the reality. There are people who collect, but again, you see what they are doing, impact in terms of the community.
Yeah.
When we broaden the conversation, when we go to places like the UK, where Christianity broke out during the King James, they had to name a constituency, or a town had to be birthed after a parish. So the first thing that came was a parish, and then after the parish grew, it now became a place, the place where the mayor rules, a municipality.
Right.
So a municipality was birthed by a parish. And what happens even today in the UK, back in the ancient UK, when the people gave taxes to the municipality used to tithe to
the parish.
And then what happened is that when people gave in the parish, the government will match their giving up to date. When you go to UK, you give an offering, the government will match that giving, because it was now the concept of spreading. But again, there was accountability, how the money was being used. We saw the missionaries when they came, they built hospitals, they built schools. Around 50 to 55% of the schools in Kenya are owned by the church. So we can begin to see there is reinvestment. Some people will say some of those schools we cannot afford. But we look at some of the mission hospitals, they are some of the best and the most affordable. So we begin to see, other than the collection, there is a lot that is happening towards the replowing. Kenya has the laws to govern every church. We submit audit reports, because we are non-profit making entities.
Yes.
And we have to submit audited reports. And of course, now where we are going, of course, we know the government will begin to send their people to see. Churches pay taxes indirectly. When I fuel the church van, I'm still paying tax through the pump machine.
Right.
So there's a lot of tax we pay. It's only that the collection is not taxed, but a lot of that collection also is plowed back. And also, ministries are quite expensive. I'll sit here and tell you, we are currently purchasing a property where we want to set the church at 130 million. Now, when you come to church, you might think, these guys are just here saying, give. But there's no other way to raise money for that church project other than the free will giving of the people, because that's how the kingdom is designed. That every kingdom project is done through free will giving. From Exodus, when they were building the tabernacle, the Lord said, ask my people to give an offering willingly. So that word willingly is very important.
Yeah.
And I know you might throw a question of, what about those who manipulate scripture to get from people?
I was not going to go there, but you can answer it.
And I'll say, when you pursue a certain faith,
Yeah.
it's your personal responsibility to understand it. Because you can't blame the false prophet only. We also have false brethren. So it's your personal responsibility